On tonight's episode, Richard Hammond does not crash. I say the word everybody, and Richard Hammond becomes the Invisible Man. There was a moment in time where the Bond series and Top Gear finally met, and I was in utter bliss. To promote the 50th anniversary of the James Bond film franchise, Top Gear created a special documentary called 50 Years of Bond Cars, looking at the entire Bond history when it comes to his use of automobiles, all the way from Dr. No and the Bentley to Skyfall reuniting with the Aston Martin DB5. It was a terrific review, but I think it's been slightly forgotten. I really used to love Top Gear. It really got me into loving cars, and I remember to this day all the Sunday nights of watching it with my brother and my sister. We just sat and enjoyed it to bits. Even my dad came along and started watching as well, and he really got into Top Gear. I always remember my very first episode I ever saw, which was when they tried to create sports stretch limousines, and just literally being an instant fan of that. I always loved how they just had fun with cars. They did stupid, wacky, gonzo things with cars, which was a niche that hadn't really been used. But looking into this documentary, I want to know, why has this documentary been slightly forgotten? Not many people talk about this documentary online, and I don't want it to be forgotten because I think it has some of the best comedic moments and some great insights to the Bond history that many people maybe didn't even know about until this documentary. So in this review, I'm going to look into this and see what I think about it. Before we get into looking at certain things in this review, everybody, please don't forget to like and comment and subscribe to this channel very much. So we're trying to reach 1,000 viewers before the end of the year, and it would be really great if we could. So don't forget to share this video around and subscribe. My personal quick feelings about this documentary is it is an undiscovered gem, and I want to go into that super quickly. I feel this is something that has been really forgotten about when it comes to Bond history, this documentary, and it deserves a lot more attention. I don't think there's really anyone online, or basically zilch, reviews or anyone talking about this, and I just don't understand why. This is such an amazing documentary, which we'll go into in a moment, and I'm hoping that you might consider looking at it again after watching this review. Let me just start off the bat with one negative here, which is the fact that it is only Richard Hammond. Now, in the past, they had done these little specials. Maybe it was either like Richard Hammond and James May, or just James May, or Jeremy Clarkson only, or two of them together. But this documentary was very much just Richard Hammond looking at the history of Bond cars. And if I'm absolutely honest, I wish it had all three. There's something truly special when Jeremy Clarkson, James May and Richard Hammond come together to do something. There is just an unspoken magic. It's just pure chemistry that works better than I think anything else ever, and I just enjoy watching them together. Now, Richard Hammond works really well on his own. He really does do some amazing stuff, whether it be in the documentary interview side of things or just driving them around, giving us some great insights. But I do say in this whole documentary, it is missing the other two a bit slightly. I would have loved to have seen Jeremy Clarkson's view on certain Bond cards, as well as James May's, looking at it from different angles. It would have been really, really great. The other thing I really want to say is Richard Hammond's documentary here was really thorough. I mean, you might think in a documentary they might just focus on the big ones like the Aston Martin and the Lotus and some of the Mondo stuff, but Richard Hammond really goes into every single car. He starts off with Dr. No. Yes, he gets the Aston Martin, but you've got the little car from You Only Live Twice. You've got a few other little cars throughout the Roger Moore era, as well as the Lotus. You've got the little, chasing For Your Eyes Only. Now, taking away the missing presenters aside, I think this documentary is really, really fantastic and so rewatchable. One of the things I love about it is the nuggets of history that I didn't know about that I learned from this documentary. Example of this being the fact that when it came to Bond's Bentley being blown up, it was actually thanks to a dentist who wrote to Ian Fleming, who suggested for his next car you either have the Aston Martin DB3 or a Jaguar, and Ian Fleming chose the Aston Martin DB5 for Bond to have. It's those little nuggets of information that we might not have heard about, or I certainly would have heard about, which makes this documentary really, really cool, as well as the cool stuff that happens in it. Another really interesting nugget I think we learned from this documentary is how Aston Martin nearly didn't have its cars in Goldfinger at all. The Aston Martin people hadn't really seen Dr. No from Russia with Love, and they weren't willing just to give them a car for free. They had to pay to have Aston Martin in the film, and my god, what a partnership was created. But it could have been so easily that Bond could have had a Jaguar in the film series and never an Aston Martin. It wouldn't be a Top Gear sort of special without some over-the-top shenanigans and some sort, if you will, riffs and jokes on the whole series, and my god, there's some really, really great ones. But the highlight for me, without a shadow of a doubt, is when Richard Hammond takes the spoof out of the invisible car. If you ever watch my Die Another Day review, I think the invisible car to me is the most over-the-top, most stupidest thing ever in the series, but I do love it. The fact that you would turn that beautiful Aston Martin, I think, yeah, I will go say this, the most beautiful Aston Martin invisible for the film is just baffles me. I could look at that car all day. But Richard Hammond takes the same technology about tiny cameras on each side projecting the image they see on a light on a screen to make it invisible, and he puts it to a Ford Transit van, and as in great Top Gear tradition, just takes the mick out of it. It's so funny to see just him driving around thinking he's pure invisible with the big engines going and like the screens projecting people a bit warped and stuff. It's just so beautifully, innocently done. It's an absolute joy to see. Another great moment in the documentary is where Richard Hammond tries to recreate the underwater Lotus Esprit. The Lotus Esprit, in my opinion, is probably the second best James Bond car outside of the DB5, purely for its history. You know, I can't imagine what it would have been like to see a car go underwater, turn into an aquatic car and just drive underwater. It must have been one of the most amazing things ever back in 1977. Heck, when I saw it for the first time, it was like, whoa. And I just love in the Top Gear tradition how they try to replicate it, and you just think in the back of your head, it's not going to work, and it's going to be a complete disaster like their hover van or something like that. But when you actually see it does work, it really is a beautiful sight to see, and just a joy to watch, and it's just a real great motoring tribute to the Bond series at that point. The interviews in this documentary are also really interesting as well. You've mostly got Guy Hamilton and Roger Moore giving insights into the series when it comes to sort of the impressive car spin stunt in The Man with the Golden Gun, to the fact that the tyres changing Goldfinger from one to the other, and then Richard Hammond makes a joke that it was probably James May who noticed that and wrote into them, or the very famous Diamonds Are Forever mix-up where the car, as I'm sure you all know, went in on a wheelie in one way and came out the other, and they had to do a little thing in the middle to try and correct it so no one would notice. It's little things like this again in the interviews that come through which are just so wonderful to see in a Bond documentary when it comes to the James Bond cars. But to me, the highlight that he agrees with me is the dark age of Bond cars when it comes to the Pierce Brosnan era. For those of you who don't know, I really am not a fan of BMWs. It's just a personal preference here, and I don't like the cars in GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies and The World's Not Enough. I'm actually quite over the moon in The World's Not Enough, where the car gets sawn in half. I'm the guy cheering here. Yay! But I love how Richard Hammond just glosses over that a bit and saying it was considered a bit of the dark age of cars, which I personally really agree with. They just don't feel like Bond cars, and he mentions that in the documentary. So in conclusion, everybody, I would like to firmly recommend that if you haven't seen this documentary on the Bond cars, you firmly should definitely. I feel this documentary has a little thing for everybody. Some great interviews, some great Top Gear laughs, some great pathos, a really in-depth look at the entire Bond history when it comes to cars. And if you're a motorhead, this is exactly the thing for you. So if you are a Bond fan as well, I also think this is something for you. This is just a really great hour-long documentary with some great laughs, some great pathos, something for everybody, and I think it's a bit of a forgotten thing, and I feel it should get a bit more deserved attention, and people should start watching it again. Right, everybody, that is it for the Bond Geek channel. As always, my name is Henry Stevens. Goodbye.